influenced my decision to want to become a judge was because I started working for a judge as soon as I graduated from law school. I was appointed a Superior Court law clerk in Massachusetts, where I consulted with judges every day and doing legal research and writing draft opinions for the judge, attending trials. After that, when I served as an assistant attorney general and an assistant district attorney, I was in front of judges and juries every day. And as a trial lawyer in private practice, I did the same. And so it was during that journey and that process, I found a passion in wanting to be a judge. I realized that that is a position that is very difficult to obtain. It takes an entire look at your career and you as a person, but it would be a nice way for also me to give back to the legal community in some way through compassion, objectivity, and making decisions that are within the boundaries of the law. So my parents came to Boston in 1958 by ship from India, my mom from Hyderabad, my dad from Delhi. They met here in Boston, and my sister Asha and I were born here in Boston. My dad was pursuing his graduate work at BU, and my mom her residency. So I am a true ABCD. However, the values that my parents taught us included respect for our elders, hard work, treating people with dignity. Those are the values that influenced me, both, I hope, as a person, but also as a judge.
Neil, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much, Upendra. It's a real honor to be here.
Very good. And we are really looking forward to honoring you at our annual gala on November 1st.
It is a humbling experience. And of course, you and I and India, New England go back many, many years.
Many years ago, I remember, I remember coming to your law office, to talk about several campaigns and interviews and some advertising campaigns as well you guys did. So
it was a very much part of my growth in this community, and it's a theme that I really want to emphasize how much we are a community here in the greater Boston area. Our South Asian community has grown exponentially, and you and India, New England and your collaboratives have really, truly been part of that growth.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the opportunity. You not only were supportive in terms of being there at my firm, but I don't know if you remember, but you gave me the opportunity to write an article called The Indian Advocate.
Yes, I remember that. And also your partner as well. We worked with him very closely at that.
Dakoyannis.
Yes. I hope he's joining us on November 1st.
I hope he will be there.
Okay,
yes.
Excellent. Good.
I'm looking forward to that event.
Yeah. And also I have very fond memories of your father, because he was very active in the community in the big, at least in the India Association of IAGB. And I was a young recruit at that time, and, so I came to know him quite well as well. So I have a very fond memory. Now, let's start there, because we wrote an article recently about you, and you always mentioned that how much you were influenced by your father and mother. So talk about how they impacted your life and childhood and value system.
It's a good question, and part of my answer to that really takes me to a recent experience I had attending the book launch of Professor Ranjay Gulati, and the book is the How to Be Bold. And it's a surprising scientific view of courage. And during that launch, it struck me that courage is really what my parents, you, and so many in our Indian community have displayed. And so to come from another part of the world on a ship with no family, no friends, just a suitcase, and to come to Boston, which they both did, took incredible courage. It's inspiring courage. and then to go through the struggles that we did as a family and the triumphs is also very much part of what inspired me to do what I'm doing today.
So your father was a professor of sociology.
That's right.
At Curry College.
Yes.
And your mom was a physician.
That's correct.
And so, like, any particular thing which stuck in your head when you were like 7-8 year old about them, are their struggles or exciting life here in Boston?
Yes. Well, first off, they met here in Boston.
Oh, they
which
met
is
here?
unique,
Okay.
right? They both came separately, and they met here. And we had a 1-bedroom apartment, and this was in Kenmore Square because Dad was at BU at the time. And that 1-bedroom apartment had a view of the Citgo sign.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. It's a landmark now. Yeah,
yes.
for sure, yeah.
And as a child, as a young boy, we used to, that used to be part of our nightly entertainment, if you will, just to watch that sign because it can be mesmerizing.
Sure.
And it was a humble dorm apartment building with my parents, my sister Asha, and I in a 1-bedroom. And although we didn't have a lot, we had so much because it was just always filled with happiness and also watching my parents work incredibly hard, both of them, not just as students. My mom was doing her residency. My dad was not only doing his graduate studies, but also he was working. So it was. I think I was exposed early on to their courage and their hard work.
So now your mom was a physician, your father was sociology professor. How did this legal thing came to your mind and you pursued that career?
Well, it was a journey. Certainly, we had one of the challenges we faced as a family was at the time. We're talking about the 1960s and 70s when I was growing up as a young boy. The climate in Massachusetts and the country was not what it is today. To be a person of color at that time, particularly during busing in Boston, often meant being faced with prejudice and racism. And I remember my mom in particular, who was my dad was known as, being very social with IUGB and the master of ceremonies at many events. My mom was on the quiet side, except when confronted with something that she believed needed to be addressed, a wrong that she needed to right. And I remember when she was in the hospital, oftentimes others would refer to her as either a nurse or even an orderly. She was a physician. And she made it clear in a very firm, but also a very respectful way that she is a physician. We were
You see, I cannot believe that how people perceive, that being a physician is perceived like a nurse. That's crazy.
It was just a climate at the time. I think that our state of Massachusetts has made incredible strides since then.
Absolutely.
But back at that time, even when we were out on the street, we had a Boston police officer drive up and ask us if we were in the wrong neighborhood. And I remember my mom gave it to the police officer and told him, wasn't scared, and just had that ability to demonstrate her courage and her convictions. And so that was part of my motivation.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, I know that I visited your office, as we talked earlier, when you were an attorney with your partner. So now you're practicing law, and then you hear that you are going to be the judge. So just describe that feeling and how that happened and what went through your mind.
Sure. So I started my career early on as a criminal prosecutor. Before that, I was a law clerk for 1 year in the Massachusetts Superior Court. I wasn't practicing law. I was working for judges. So my first influence, because I was the first lawyer in our family and one of the first in our community at the time.
At that time.
Yeah. And so I was working for judges. And so that exposed me to, for the first time, the lens of what a judge sees and thinks when starting a case. I did research and writing for the judges. So after that, I decided I want to be in a courtroom. So I became an assistant district attorney doing jury trials as a trial lawyer, where I was conducting jury trials on a weekly basis. I was in front of judges all the time. That was my office, was the courtroom. There was a lot of work behind the scenes that I would do in the office, but my days were filled with being in front of jurors and judges. So I think that had an influence on me. And as my journey progressed, my professional journey, both in the private sector and in my law firm, I always had that dream of one day becoming a judge. That was a dream of mine. And my only regret, because I find it to be an incredible gift, I truly love what I do. My only regret was my parents weren't alive to see that. But my wife, Yoshika, and my sons, BJ and Karan, and my in-laws, and my sister, Asha, and my father-in-law, B.D. Nayak, and my...
Well, everybody knows B.D. Nayak. Absolutely.
And my mother-in-law. They all were there to be part of that, including many in the community. But it's a long process. The appointment of a judge in Massachusetts is by the governor. And the governor just doesn't appoint an applicant. There is a long process of vetting all applicants. So once there is an opening, and there's only an opening for a judge if a judge retires.
It's a lifetime appointment.
It's a lifetime appointment. So it's only if a judge retires or there is a new opening. In other words, the court needs new resources, but that's oftentimes so budget dependent. So there was an opening in the housing court, which my firm did a lot of real estate, so it seemed to me to be a good fit. So the vetting process starts with the Judicial Nominating Commission. Your application is at least 100 pages, but you can't put your name on it. And the Judicial Nominating Commissioners review the applications, and if they find an application meets their standard and their criteria of experience, they will grant you an interview. Once you go to the interview, there are at least 6 to 10 commissioners that question you about your career, about your decisions, about your view of the law. If they vote in favor of you going forward, then you get your next interview. If you don't, you have to start all over again with the next opening. Once you go forward, you meet with the head of the JNC, or Judicial Nominating Commission, and the governor's legal counsel. After that interview, if they approve you, you go forward in the process. If not, you have to start again with the next opening. The next interview is with the governor. My interview was with Governor Baker and the Lieutenant Governor, and mine was with Lieutenant Governor Polito. Once that interview takes place, then the governor has a certain time period. I believe it's 180 days, but you either are going to be nominated in that time period, and if not, you have to start all over.
So it's a long process.
It's a long process. Once you're nominated, then there is a public hearing where elected Republicans and Democrats question you. My hearing took all day. And at the end of that hearing, they vote.
And which year was that?
This was in 2018. And my nomination was affirmed in May of 2018, and I was sworn in as a judge in June.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You also made us Indian Americans very proud that, what we have the judge here. And then before you, there was another one. Savita Singh was also a judge, right?
Yes, Judge Singh and I were both at the district attorney's office together in 1994. She was with the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office. I was in the Hampshire County District Attorney's Office. She was in the appellate division, so she was dealing with the cases that were on appeal, and I was in the trial division. So we often would talk, because if I was stuck with a trial issue that could go on appeal, I'd give Savita a call, and she would do the same for me when she wanted to understand.
So Savita was also Woman of the Year once when we had just launched, and so what a small word.
It truly is, and so proud of her and all her accomplishments. She is now sitting on the Massachusetts Court of Appeals as a justice.
Excellent. So now, those of us who watch court dramas on television, we have never had really experience in the court system. And we always, at least I wonder that, when the judge comes, sits there, everybody stands up, and then what goes through in the mind of the judge? When he gets up in the morning, what goes in his mind, he's thinking about cases or how he or she really prepares for the day. And then when you come to sit on the chair, what happens to the judges? How do you feel? So if you can just give us some sort of that part of your journey, that would be fantastic.
Sure. I'll start by saying it did take getting used to walking into a room, everyone standing up, and then leaving the room, everyone standing up. And certainly it's a humble experience, but I'm reminded at home by my sons and my wife that doesn't happen outside of the courtroom. Okay. So, but my day will begin with preparation for the cases that are scheduled that day, or it's the docket. We refer to it as the docket. In the housing court, where we deal with all cases involving residential occupancies and the health, safety, and well-being of those residential occupants. The most common case is evictions, but we deal with so much more. We deal with zoning violations, with health code violations. We deal with personal injury. We deal with crimes, drug manufacturing and sales from a particular residential unit are cases that we often deal with. We deal with discrimination in the housing context. So we have a really broad range of jurisdictional authority. And so when our typical docket on our session day involves anywhere between 75 to 100 cases. Mm-hmm. So to go through each case would be incredibly time consuming. So what I do is I typically will sit down with my clerk and we will look at the cases that we know are going to go forward for trial, or there are also motions, legal motions. So that preparation part is really important because I owe it to the lawyers and the litigants that have put in the time to prepare for it. So I'd like to be prepared when I'm on the bench.
So now when it comes to that point of decision, that you have to make a decision, you have to really make your judgment. What happens at that time? Do you get caught into both sides, or generally the evidence is so overwhelming that it's easy to make a decision?
So
give me both examples. That sometimes it is easy, but sometimes it is really tough.
Okay. Well, I think first and foremost, what I have to ensure is that I'm being objective, I'm being fair, and in my view, compassionate. So yes, in some examples, there's no real dispute of fact. However, there is often an opportunity for a judge to exercise some discretion. For example, to provide a particular litigant some time, or to provide a particular litigant some leniency when it comes to a particular consequence. How does a judge do that? What I do is that I first recognize how fortunate I am, how fortunate many of the people in our community are, how fortunate are the people that I often see day in and day out that have so much in life. And certainly I need to recognize that for myself, first off. Secondly is to also recognize the struggles of the people in front of me. So in order to recognize struggle, I have to first recognize the benefits that
So the compassion does play a role.
It has to, in my view, it has to. It's not always a role because sometimes the law is clear. There is no flexibility. There is no discretion. those are what I would call. Some would call it the easier case because there's no discretion. Oftentimes they're difficult because of that lack of discretion. And then, of course, there are the cases that I mentioned where there is discretion and providing that compassion. One of the things that might be of interest is that judges in Massachusetts have to be on call a week every twice a year. We were on call. And so during that week, when the courts close down, I'll be on call with a special phone that the state police and the local police have. And when a particular crime occurs involving, for example, domestic violence, the police officer will be at the scene with the victim, who has been typically severely physically assaulted, and is in incredible distress. And the abuser is typically not there and not arrested. If the abuser has been arrested, then the process is a little bit different. But what I have to do at that moment when I get the call, and it's typically in the early morning hours or late hours of the night, I have to listen to the victim, and I have to listen to what has occurred, and then I have to listen to the police officer, and then I have to issue an order requiring the abuser to stay away from the victim. And that experience is very eye-opening. It's very humbling, and it reminds me that, again, how fortunate I am, and how many in our community are.
So now, once you have made the decision and you go home, has it ever happened to you that you regret, oh my God, I should not have made that decision, or it is generally you were very sure about?
I think that's a question that, with experience, that second guessing gets minimized. I think when we all start out doing something new,
sure.
I spent my career advocating.
Sure.
Now I'm spending my days listening and making decisions that impact people's lives. And because it impacts people's lives, yes, there are days where I come home and I question my reasoning, my decision, and those, fortunately, days have reduced because I've got more experience now. I've been a judge for 7 years. But yeah, it can happen.
It can.
Yeah.
So now you were the first Indian American attorney in Massachusetts when you started your career. Now there is significant growth, and a lot of Indian Americans were there. And I think you were also involved with the South Asian Bar Association here. So now when you look at the, before, anyone who saw Indian, they thought either we were software engineers or we were, doctors or something like that. Now there's a huge pool of attorneys. So just talk about the growth of Indian American attorneys and South Asian Bar Association.
Sure. I mean, that is so endearing to me. I'm so happy to see our community and the lawyers in our community succeed and how much they've succeeded. When I first started, and I was one of the first of a handful of lawyers.
Yeah.
There were
very few
of us. Yeah. And we used to informally we had each other's phone numbers. We didn't have email back then.
Sure.
We had a list, and we would call one another and say, let's meet. We used to meet on Boylston Street on a Thursday night, and we'll all meet and have a drink together and get to know one another and start this very informal networking. And that grew from that informal group to the South Asian Bar Association of Greater Boston. Now the South Asian Bar Association is a national, incredibly powerful and influential organization. And so both SABA, GB, and NASABA are organizations that have the ability to effectuate change, to provide a platform for new attorneys to meet senior attorneys and get mentorship. I'm proud to serve on the board of advisors for the South Asian Bar Association of Greater Boston. And the journey's been very gratifying. And now we see lawyers in South Asian lawyers that are leaders in private sector, big firms, small firms, public sector. We've had the Attorney General for the New York District. We've had we have a director of the FBI.
Sure, yeah.
So we have so many of our community in positions of incredible influence and the accomplishments. I can only describe it as just incredible pride. I hope that I'll always be the kid from the community. I grew up here. I was born and raised in Boston. Boston's my home. The Indian community and the South Asian community as an extension has been part of my growth here as a young boy. It's an incredibly loving community. Do my friends often refer to me as judge? They do in an affectionate way. But I know I'm always going to be Neil to them. I'm not going to be the judge. But it is a responsibility. I do have a different role. I represent the judiciary every day, whether I'm in court or whether I'm at a social event. And it's important for me to remember that and recognize that.
Okay. Now, I have to ask you about the family as well. I know your father-in-law, Mr. Nayak, B.T. Nayak, quite well.
World-renowned
architect, yes. And, he was also one of the first Indian architects here in this area and designed a lot of buildings and homes and temples as well. So how did you meet your wife, Yoshika?
Well, it depends who you ask, me or Yoshika.
Okay, I'm asking you now.
All right.
I'm totally in your favor right now. So.
Thank you. So, as you mentioned, both my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my parents were early pioneers.
Yes.
My father-in-law came here in the early 60s to study at MIT. And so when they came, the community was so small.
Sure.
Just like our South Asian Bar Association, same thing.
Sure.
So they became friends. They were part of the circle, and they socialized quite a bit. And Yoshika and I never met. We knew of each other's parents and families, but we never met. It was only after I had finished law school, I was working for the Attorney General of Massachusetts as an assistant attorney general. And Yoshika had graduated with her MBA from Bentley. That my mom and dad went to her graduation party at the Nayak's home. And after the party, my dad mentioned to Yoshika that my son is active in the NetSAP network.
I remember that organization. Yeah.
So, you might want to give him a call and participate in it. Now, I don't know if my dad was doing a very subtle arrangement.
Okay, sure.
Some would say it could be. But Yoshika called me and, I told her about NetSAP and we met and we became friends and she joined the board with me and we worked together on the board for a year. And, during that time, we got to spend time together. And then we started dating. But we couldn't tell our parents.
Yeah, sure.
Because if we told our parents, then the community news would be they're getting married.
Yeah, sure.
Although when I met her, I knew.
Okay. So now what is her story? What she says?
Well, let me just finish it. So then when we told our parents, we had to tell them eventually.
Sure.
Then we were at a party. And one of the uncles at the party came up to us and said, "We just told our parents we were dating."
Yeah.
And they came up to us and said, "Congratulations! I heard the good news, the two of you." And so it eventually led to that. And I asked her parents' permission before proposing. She didn't know, and she did not have an idea that this was all happening.
Right.
And I think she'll agree with that part of the story.
Okay. So there is mostly agreement on this.
On this issue, yeah. I think the part that we probably go back and forth on was who was interested in who first.
Okay. So that is always debated.
Yes,
right?
yes. My wife Yoshika is an absolute inspiration. Professionally, she's been in the pharmaceutical marketing and patient advocacy space in the Boston area for over 20 years. She is now focused on patient advocacy, where she is the global patient advocacy lead in the neuroscience business for Takeda Pharmaceuticals. What amazes me about Yoshika's role is that she is that voice for the patient. She's the advocate for the patient. And in her advocacy, she helps bridge the gap between the patient, who is the voice that must be heard, and the industry that is tasked to help that patient. She's an inspiration for me and our boys.
Okay. Now, also you have a very famous sister-in-law as well.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So tell about Tanya Naik. Yes.
So Tanya, I met early on as well when I met Yoshika, and Tanya has also, if we go back to that theme of courage, she followed her passion and pursued, sort of having her father there as an incredible guide for her. She pursued interior design. And so she's an architect of the inside.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And was doing fine in her career. I had my law practice, and she gave me a call one day and said, I met someone and through a friend, and they are creating television shows, and this person works for ABC, and asked me if I'd be interested in appearing on a show. Can you look at the paperwork? I looked at it and I said, wow, this sounds really exciting. And the next thing I know, she had her first TV show, and it was called Knock First. And Knock First was on ABC Family, and it had the theme was Tanya would come in and talk to the parents of a young teenager. And for example, if this teenager liked skateboards, she would design his room without him knowing. Somehow it would happen very quickly, like over a weekend. And then the teenager would see this, incredibly new room. And from there, she has skyrocketed her career. She has a private interior design company. She's been on Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres.
Sure.
She's been on ABC's great Halloween fight night, where there are all these. The Halloween light fight. Light fight. Yeah. Her career has skyrocketed.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I also want to mention that my wife Yoshika also has been recognized by India New England.
Yes, sure, yes.
And she has had an incredible, inspiring career.
And how old are your sons?
So my oldest son, Vijay, is 21. He will be 22 this month. And he's finishing up at Northeastern.
Okay.
And he's currently doing his co-op at Bain Capital. And my youngest son, Karan, is 19. He's at the Eisenberg School of Business at UMass, Amherst. He's studying sports management.
Excellent. On that note, Neil, thank you so much. It was a great learning experience for me, and getting through the life of a judge. It's quite a fantastic journey you also had. And we are looking forward to honoring you on November 1st.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for being such a support of both me and this whole community.
Thank you.
Thank you.